All right. Well, welcome to yet another episode of Fuck You Friday. I'm your host, Win Silberman. This is my co-host, Casey LeBlanc. I am super excited today because we get to host the one and only Mike Rathje. From the San Jose Sharks. God, what do you play? 13 years in the NHL, I think?
13 years, yeah.
I'm very, very excited to dig in and see some things that, some common themes of how to win, both in sports and business. But before we do this, I always like to present Casey with perspective and question of origin as to why we're even fucking here. Because I want you to realize that this is a phenomenal podcast, but I want you to understand there's actually purpose behind it. And Case, if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about origin.
Yeah. We try to do this every time just to talk a little bit about, because there's going to be some times we ask you questions and then we try to bring it back to the why and the what and some of those things. So the podcast really is about bringing on people that have done elite things in their life and talking to them about how they either got there or some of the things, both mental and physical, that people can learn from. And so the name Fuck You Friday is really based upon the opposite of thank God it's Friday, right? Where you're just trying to get to the weekend. You're not really happy with your life. You're not pushing yourself. You're not setting yourself up for success. So what are some of those things that you can or should be doing that elite people have done that have already proven success with it? So that's kind of where we go with certain questions that we have. And a lot of the place that we like to start, and first of all, thank you for coming. This is our first hockey player, and so there's a lot of questions around the sport, around the mentality and all those different things. But for us to give some context to the people that are listening, can you talk a little bit about where you're from and give us some background on you? So
I grew up in small town, Manville, Alberta, Canada.
Manville? Sounds like one of your type of vills.
I was waiting for that. But there's about 500 people there, farming community, and they had grade 1 through 12 for the whole town.
Wow.
So, I mean, most kids were farming. Most kids would go off to the oil patch, work on the drilling rigs and stuff. So that's kind of where it was based, where I picked up a lot of it. We had a lot of time on our hands. So what do you do when you have a lot of time? You go out and play hockey, play street hockey, play ice hockey, play road hockey, whatever.
On ice hockey, was it like frozen lakes, or were there rings? Or
there was both.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we'd like to make jokes about a small town, but just for those of you who are not watching, Mike's 6'5", 6'6", maybe 6'7". God, is he growing? Jesus.
I did grow a little bit.
Well, it's weird because because Casey's 5'10", and so with he's always tried to get to 6 feet. He just never has.
With heels on.
The shoes.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm on my best behavior now that I know you're 6'7".
Anyway, sorry, we digress. So there's a context of there's outside games, there's literally street hockey, which you're not using skates, I assume, but you're always working on your skill. And all the kids, was there a ton of kids always playing? Is that what it was?
Yes, there was always a group of 15 or so.
Wow.
That would come out every day, and it was either we'd go to the school grounds, play on the grass, or in the wintertime we would do it on the street when it's packed with snow.
Awesome.
Or we'd go to the rink that was made, the outdoor rink at the school grounds, and play there.
Were you always big? Like when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're always one of the bigger kids, and did you always have skills that you're like, okay, I'm pretty fucking
Did you
good.
know? Yeah, did you always kind of dominate? Or
actually, I think it was 2 years in, maybe. I started, and the second year just started picking up quick on it. And then, I was playing at a second level above, 2 ages above, right? With the
how does it work? Is it similar to? So it's by age? Is it by grade? What happens in the hockey world?
It's by age, but I mean, when you're advanced, sometimes they'll let you play up, and then sometimes they won't. There's little small town politics in there.
Yeah. So you're playing up north, right? So we're Canada. It's not the United States. The mindset of a kid playing, I don't care if it's football, basketball, baseball, hockey, the mindset and dream of any young athlete is, number one, to play college ball. You know, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3, the goal is to try to. It's the scholarship is like the holy grail, because that means that in a sense you've made it as an athlete. Was that your goal as well? Were you looking at sports as a way to grab a scholarship, or how did you see hockey?
You know what, I was probably around 10, 11 years old, and the Oilers were like the thing. They were winning cups, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier. Mm-hmm. And I watched them every day, all the time. And that was like the focus. I was all, whoa, you know, that would be great someday to get there, right?
Your eyes were on the pro.
Yeah. So we were always on the Oilers or the Flames. There's the Battle of Alberta in Alberta.
Sure.
And it was always exciting. There was tension. It was everything, right? So if you're from the north, it was the Oilers. If you're from the south, it was the Flames.
Got it.
So it's still going, right there.
There's still that rivalry tension.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where it started. And I had a couple relatives, a couple cousins that were really good. Mm-hmm. They were young guys that went and played junior hockey, Tier 1 level, which I kind of followed also. And I was like, oh, I want to be like those guys. So the thing was, it wasn't college, it was Tier 1. Junior.
Tier 1 is in a pro context, or what does that mean exactly? What does Tier 1 mean?
Is the Canadian Hockey League. It's the highest level for under 20. So at 16 to 20, you can go into that and you can get drafted right out of there.
You get paid?
You get a little bit of a stipend. So that's a big deal right now. They're having lawsuits over it because they're like employees, you know, but they don't get benefits.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So something similar is going on.
Well,
with
it's
the
interesting
NCAA.
to tie this into what's going on down south, as they say, in your land, right?
Yeah.
In the United States, obviously these licenses for the collegiate athletes, they're starting to transition into being paid commodities, right? And so we're wondering where that's going to go. And you're kind of speaking to it up north there. It's a little bit of a mess.
It is.
Well, because they are employees, right?
Yeah.
They're just not paid or not compensated with benefits.
With benefits.
Yep.
Exactly.
So interesting.
And that's what we went through back in the day, and you get like, it was like $50 every 2 weeks or something for, you know.
That's what Win
snacks.
makes.
Barely. Yeah.
So
on a good week.
So I mean, yeah, that it was considered. It's like grooms you for the NHL, basically the Canadian Hockey League. So
it grooms you for the NHL. So let's transition to this. So you've gone from your childhood. There's clearly games. There's interaction. You're noticing that you're elite. Are you practicing more than other kids as you progress? Do you have a sense of more and more dedication towards the sport as you progress?
Yes, I'm pretty sure 99% of all the pros they were all doing it all day, kind of thing, like hours in the day.
And what? Like shoot? Like what do you do?
Yeah, what's the training like?
So basically, in a small town, you have a basement with concrete and drywall on the walls, right? So you go down after school and start stick handling through the basement.
That's awesome.
And set up obstacles in there and start doing it for hours. Then you
Hours
go have dinner. And then you go back down for the second session of it and do that like every day.
Because it's fucking cold outside anyways, right?
You can't do nothing. There's no, Netflix going on. So you're sharpening your skills, and now you've gotten in a position where you're in Tier 1, correct? Yeah. So now let's transition into the San Jose Sharks. You know that you have potential, and now your dream is to be drafted and to play in the NHL. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think were you literally the first player ever drafted by the Sharks, or what exactly? What is it? No, I was the second year first player drafted.
Second year first player drafted.
Round.
So was that number 3?
What is it? What pick were you?
Number 3.
Oh,
the overall, the entire draft.
Yeah.
Did that put instant pressure on you, because you're seeing your dream on the one hand, right? You're seeing your dream, and all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, it's my dream, and now I have to perform, and did you not want to disappoint? What was going on in your head?
It was a lot of blur, I guess you could say. Everything was going by so fast. And
how old were you?
I was 18.
18. Wow.
Yeah. So the pressure was on. It was immense. You know, you wanted to make it the first year into the league, and that was the perfect thing for a draft pick, right? To get in right away, start your career.
Yeah, 18.
You didn't want to go down. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to go back to junior. It wasn't the thing. And of course, what happened with me was something like that. In my mind, I wasn't really happy with the organization, and I wanted to play. And of course, they were contemplating on what they want to do with me in my development.
Well, it's interesting in your career, following your career. It seems to me, it appears to me, look, you're a fucking massive human being, right?
Yeah.
And so you think ostensibly, empirically, you're here to beat someone's ass. You're an enforcer. You're that type of, you're gonna hold the line, so to speak. And yet, if you really reflect on the type of player that you incorporated actually a lot of athleticism and finesse into your game. And so, were the optics were a little off, right? Because a fan's expectation of what you were versus who you were seems like it was different. Is that right?
That's right. I was more of a player, not specifically an enforcer. More defensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it started out, it was tough because I was underdeveloped as an 18-year-old for my size. So I was going to step in with men, that were...
28 versus 18 is a huge difference.
That's a big difference, yeah.
Huge difference.
There's some guys that can step in. They're developed, obviously, at 18. They're rare, but for a defenseman to step in right away and play is rare. It's totally rare.
And did they throw you to the wolves, or what happened?
I had some wolf bites, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was tough. I was walking in at 205, 6'5", 205, 210, like skinny kid. And I could get away with it in junior because I was a big guy. 205, 210 is a lot of weight,
that's a lot
right?
of weight. Yeah. That's actually what I weigh right now, about 205.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So the pros, you're looking at 225, 230, 240, right?
Well, yeah. Well, what were you in your, let's say, call it your prime, so to speak, like at 28 or whatever, at 30, what were you weighing? What was the difference in weight?
6'6", 240.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
What I'm curious again. So hockey. I'm from California, and hockey is. We were in San Jose, but it was later in my life where the Sharks even showed
they came
up,
like
right?
mid-90s.
So we didn't grow up with hockey as much as it is probably in Canada. But explain this enforcer idea, right? Like what is that? What's the culture of the enforcer within the NHL? And give us some idea of how that works.
The enforcer back then, it was the guy who looked out for the skilled players, and each team had one up to 5 of them.
Is that their actual title, like on their hockey card?
No, it was like unwritten stuff.
Right. Unspoken, yeah.
And this was the way it was for years. It was always that way.
How do you get that role? Like, do you actually have to go into the back of the...
in practice, are you fighting everybody and it's like the one who wins?
It could happen, yeah.
Yeah?
It could. In training camp, you walk in, if you're going to go in that role, you're going to
start picking fights and shit.
Yeah. And are some people like, hey, I'm just not that good, but I'm pretty tough. Like, I could just kind of skate around and beat the shit out of people. Like, I can probably find a role for money, right? It's almost like MMA
we call those goons,
on ice.
I think.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Yeah, there was you guys that weren't skilled, but they're 6'7" and 250, and they can, they can go.
Since the podcast is called Fuck You Friday, walk me into the mindset of the enforcer.
Yeah.
Like, who is the enforcer? And give me some idea as to what this person...
Particularly when you were playing, like, who is... If it wasn't you, was there someone that donned that mask immediately and you're like, yeah, that's the guy?
Like, how fucked up are these people? Like, honestly.
You know what? Some of them were a little fucked up, yes. They're a little wild.
They're off a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, he's off a little bit.
Yeah, I could see a little
Yeah, he's got that. He's a little different. Yeah.
But, I mean, some of them were family, dads had the kids, and
they can just transform, just turn it on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a consistent theme, though. Guy McIntyre, who was a longtime 49er, spoke to us, and one of the things he said is like, look, he's a genuine he's a sweetheart, right?
Family man,
but he said, hey, as soon as you cross that field, that line, he said it's on.
Yeah.
Like there's this mentality, and we're going to go into mentality a little more later, where you just literally, when you step on the ice, things change.
Oh, yeah.
Is that consistent?
It's very much like going in the ring. You get in the ring, be prepared to protect yourself.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is in hockey. Back then, now it's a little different.
Did you ever run into an enforcer? Because you were on the defensive side. So if you hit one of their star players, the enforcer's coming after you.
Yeah.
And how do you know? Like, is there?
Did you get in like a lot of fights?
Not as I got into some early in my career and in junior, but I realized, you know what, I think I'm going to step away from this area.
This role. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily have to knock people out or get knocked out.
Well, these guys are training like
they're training to box and fight.
Yeah, MMA, grappling, boxing.
Really, they're training like that outside the ring.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The ring.
Jesus. Yeah. No pun. That's insane. Another question that Case and I were talking about before obviously we got on here. I played a little bit overseas in basketball, and fortunately or unfortunately, basketball wasn't seen as a great sport in Sweden. But in the little town that I got to hang out in, it was in Huskvarna, Jönköping. HV 71 was the team there. The Sundin brothers, I think.
Sundins.
That sounds like my air conditioner.
Yeah. Well, Husqvarna is the chainsaws. That's the factory. That's where all the chain. Never mind. Anyways, the question I had is, I went to a couple. The hockey is celebrated, and it was super cool during the winter. First of all, it got dark by like 2:00, but it's kind of like Canada. The thing was, when you walked outside, it's just like what you said. Everywhere there's these little ponds that are frozen over. Every kid is out there playing hockey, and that was really, really fun for me to see, right?
Yes.
And it was fun for me to go to the games, but this is what was interesting. I never saw a fight in a pro Swedish hockey game ever. And a very good friend of mine, Torbjörn Falk, who was a pro player, said to me, in Sweden, this is a cultural thing. We don't fight in Sweden. Is that true? Are there different cultures of hockey as you go globally?
There is. It was always that way as I grew up playing. I had some experience with junior hockey world championships. And I mean, it was always that way. The Canadians and maybe the Russians and maybe the U.S. were kind of that culture.
Huh.
Fighting was accepted. But like Finland, Sweden, Czech, no, they weren't. It just wasn't.
It wasn't incorporated in the culture of the game.
No, never.
NHL, so we talked about getting drafted high, the expectations. When you get to the NHL, are things just moving quicker? What walk me through the transition of going from I'm the bigger
Tier
kid,
one to,
I'm a bigger kid in the ring to now I'm just another guy.
I'm keeping my head on a swivel for the enforcer.
But what were some of the things that you saw really early on? Where was it faster? Was it bigger people? Was it just the combination of everything?
It was a combination of everything. The puck moved 10 times as fast. Passing, shooting. The size of the players, they were 10, 15 pounds heavier minimum. There were little guys that were, super strong, and you couldn't move them around, not like junior, right? So yeah, it was a big step for me because I was that type of player. I was underdeveloped for my size, and usually a good defenseman, it takes them 2 or 3 years of development before they hit their stride, right? So that was me. I was up and down a lot, and it took me a long time to get my shit together, kind of thing, and get training and get with it, and then get a regular shift out there.
Well, let's talk about that. I want to go into mentality, because as you navigate through your career, there were ups and downs, particularly in the beginning. You were sharing with me that, look, it was rough. I was seen as this, I wasn't that, and then I was underdeveloped. What was it that got you through those tough periods? What was it that made you not want to quit?
That's a good question. For whatever I was installed with my family and maybe my mom or something, where I was like, I'm not going to stop. No matter how hard it was, there were times where you're in a dark room in a hotel in the minors, right? And like, kind of like this, but, and
with real weird, creepy logos.
Maybe not that.
Okay.
This is where Win comes to cry. So you're in a safe spot.
So, yeah, there was those moments where you're like, oh, is this the right thing I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And you just keep going, you keep getting up, you keep going, and I always thought about where I came from and my family and a lot of that stuff.
So almost like a responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I can't let anybody down. I'm going to get back into this, get going, right? And I wanted to get to a high level. I was a first-round draft pick, and I want to be a regular in the NHL. So in my mind, I was like, I'm not failing at that.
It's
right?
not an option.
Right.
And this is where I'm getting to. Obviously, there's a lot of Olympic dialogue right now, right? There's particular athletes that are there's this new culture, so to speak. I might call it new. I don't know what you want to call it, but this concept of mental health is a thing, and I don't discredit that, right? But my question that we were talking about that I want you to reflect on is, what is the distinction between not quitting, incorporating mental toughness, and getting through something, and this pivot into mental health and it being okay, so to speak, to take a break? Like, is there a distinction, and what do you see? What's going on?
You know, I can see it. I've been through that situation myself. For a pro athlete, you're not allowed to do that, really.
Yeah.
Like it's not okay in everyone's minds, but I think they're starting to study it more, learn about it more, and they're changing the game. The teams are changing. You know, they're doing things differently, and you'd rather have a player happy, you know.
What's an example? What do you mean? Like, their teams are doing things differently? Like,
they bring your dads on a road trip and show some camaraderie with family. We never did that back in my day.
Huh.
Yeah, and I mean, they're doing. I'm not 100% on what all they're doing now, but we did some team trips, you know, canoeing, kayaking, stuff like that, and going to the military bases and seeing some stuff. But it's there, like the mental part of it, the difference between being a sissy or having depression, you know. And I mean, some guys, I think they get that. They don't even realize they have it. They're going through it, and that maybe their game is dipping.
Yeah.
But they're like, you know what, I got to get back out there and get going, or I'm going to lose my contract.
When you're in that hotel room, you know, over an extended amount of time, and it feels dark, whether it's dark or not, but it feels dark. How do you get back up? How do you show up? You know,
what did you? I mean,
You know, it's a lot of phone calls to friends, to family, and talking on the phone like for hours. And I had a teammate, when I was in one of those situations, I had a teammate who had a farm. He was a goalie. And I used to go out to his farm and just kind of walk around and do things, get out of the hotel room and do some normal things, right? And I did it. I would stay out there with them once in a while just to get out of that environment, right?
It's interesting. We talk about the role of the concept of team, the role that you play as a good teammate, and then the role of the coach. How does that play a role when you're navigating through this? Like, did your coach, for example, at the Sharks, did he like say, hey, are you doing okay? Or what role did he play, and how did you as a team, were you a close team?
You know, that's a good one. I mean, Mike Babcock comes into my head, and I'm like, I know what that's all about.
What do you mean by that for those that don't know?
Well, there was no how you doing. None. It was
just a hard ass.
Hard. It was
old school.
Ice cold in the beginning of my career. And then we got a couple new coaches that were kind of like that. They were friendlier, but they didn't last long. They were gone.
Huh.
So then, of course, when the one coach came along, and he was that way, he's obviously very successful now, Daryl Sutter. Mm-hmm. So we got into it that way, and he was a hard-ass, ice-cold in the beginning. But then we actually started talking a little bit more, and he showed some empathy a little bit. And I was like, okay, you know, I like this guy. And, you know, he stood behind you when you did well.
Well, so yeah, no, keep going.
I mean, when you were doing well, when you were fucking up, like, he was literally kicking you in the ass on the bench.
Yeah.
Like, physical abuse.
I mean that wouldn't go over well on social media these days, right? Like, this guy would be in jail.
Dude, I seen the one guy say that, and I'm like, I got kicked by Daryl like a whole bunch of times. I was like, okay, I got to be better.
It's part of the game. Yeah.
No, but you just said it though, right? Like, he kicks me in the ass, and the first thing in your mind is not, oh, I want to go tell. It's
it's not out.
It's I got to go fucking be better, right? Like, that's the point. You know, like, there's so we've talked about this, and there's like a fine line of what you can or can't can't say in this politically correct society, but like the idea of competition, the idea of being better, the idea of accountability, the idea of sports and the mental side of sports it's kind of coming to the forefront right now. And I think it's just an interesting and fascinating thing.
And the reason I was pointing to him is we had with Guy McIntyre, we were able to really he shared some really interesting perspective in Bill Walsh and how he coached, who was obviously arguably one of the best coaches in the history of the NFL. And one of the things that he said that always burns through my mind is Bill always showed that he cared. Empathy actually built rapport and created a more succinct team and he felt that was a really important component to a winning culture.
Well,
Empathy.
and he also was not leading or coaching or mentoring people in the same manner, right? Like one guy needed one thing.
He would tailor himself.
So I don't know that your coaches actually understood maybe you needed to be coached a little bit different of a way at a younger age than at an older age, and you're at different stages of your career. There's different personalities. People respond like it's the carrot or the stick, right? Or am I going to manage with a carrot or the stick? And if you're getting kicked in the ass saying, hey, be better, some people can crumble in that regard. Whereas you say, hey, if you do this, you'll get this, and people respond because they're challenged.
I totally agree. I think everybody is different in the way they accept coaching.
Yeah, and respond to it.
Yeah, motivation. And I see it in high school kids. I coach high school hockey. And I've coached girls hockey also, and that's a real
interesting.
That one was a learner of how to treat the different girls and the way they respond.
Wow.
So and I think everything is changing with the kids nowadays. They're way more intelligent with the social media aspect, using the phones. You know, they're learning so much more than what we did. We were just like little robots back then. They kick us in the ass. You're supposed to go. But these kids they're learning so many different things, and you know, the feelings, the response, motivation. You know, coaches now, even at the pro level, they have to accept that part, right? Like I'm trying to do texting communication to coach kids now and experimenting with it to see, right? Rather than putting them in a room and, you know, doing it on the board.
Calling them out. You're literally like, hey,
I'm going to do the Snapchat with them, text them, hey, good job.
Yeah.
Let's do this tomorrow.
Because that builds chemistry too,
well,
right?
They connect to it.
Yeah,
right.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never actually thought about that, is that people are developing their social skills in a much more meaningful and different way than what it was 30. Yeah. It's accelerated in a different way. That it's actually smart. We should be cognizant of that as we're looking at the youth and how they're growing up, right? All of us similar in age probably we didn't grow up with that social media. So we were confined to the whatever sphere, circle, town that we were in, right? And everybody's town is different. Now you're on a world stage.
Yeah.
Well, now I would say that gathering information has become a habit. It's become a habit. The first thing you do if you don't see something, you're Googling it. Yeah. When I was a kid, what was the worst thing? If my father used a word that I usually didn't know, the worst thing I knew, if I didn't know, he'd know I didn't know it. What I have to do, I had to go fucking look up in the dictionary.
So I was right so
it's the worst. So now I could have fucking Googled it. I would have been able to talk to my dad more.
Well, I think the point here is that I really didn't need to pay attention in school, right? Because I knew Google was going to be there at some point. So I'm like, somebody will figure this whole answering questions thing the correct way out.
Yeah,
I don't need to read.
But it's interesting. It's fascinating that you have to incorporate that into fucking coaching now.
Yes, I'm experimenting more with it through a little consulting gig that I'm doing.
Whoa.
And I'm trying to get into more hockey with higher level players, like AAA, maybe junior. So I'm doing it through like Zoom call or like Google Meets, and you know, communication that way, and through a text thing.
What's the response been from people in that are in AAA, and is there a market for it, and have you getting?
Honestly, I think there's a giant market for it, because I talk to my buddy who's into a hockey academy, and our girls play on the same team, and we're like, you know what, they're getting decent coaching, but we could give them so much more, and I'm like, how can I do that?
Yeah,
right.
Well, maybe I can do it through, you know, the internet, right? And do it in a video setting where you can watch visual video, right?
Sure.
All the pros, everyone's doing video.
Well, YouTube is a new form of education.
Yeah,
I mean, it's truly that's the mimic, everything that people are learning they've thrown away the archaic systems that have been here for centuries, whether it's playing an instrument.
Yes.
whether it's playing a sport, whether it's doing anything. It's like a new way of learning.
Well, so my question here is that you were drafted by the San Jose Sharks, and then you saw a litany of coaches. Some you liked, some you didn't. That's just the nature of the beast with coaching. But if you had a support system outside of the coaching that could then tap into the things that you needed, that could have probably helped you, right, in a different way. Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
You know what? That's exactly what I thought about when I was in that situation of in the hotel room. And I'm like, I think about it now, man, if I had a NHL alumni out there where I give them a call, do a Zoom call with them, talk about my game or talk about something, right? I'm like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Like if you can put that together, not even for like NHL, but maybe football.
Talk about therapeutic.
Yeah. Like, so I'm like, I'm going to start trying this out, and I'm going to do it with some AAA kids, see how it does. But from my experience, it would have changed probably my game.
Your performance.
Yeah. So I would have had some positive reinforcement then. I would have got out of that environment quicker. Right. And yeah, I think it's exactly what you just said.
So I'm fascinated by the pro mentality, and take me through your thoughts as you've gone through extreme success on a physical level, and then the depths at a mental level. Where do you see the percentage line for success in the pro game as far as mental, physical? Is it 50-50? Is it 80-20? Like, walk me through kind of what your thought is, especially maybe as it relates to hockey and maybe some other sports that you either know or can hypothecate on.
I mean, I think the mental side of it is like 99%.
Wow.
Huh.
I mean, if your mental side is not there, you can't perform. That's your computer, right?
Yeah.
So that's my feeling on it. And looking back, when I was in down lows, I was like, where was my head? Well, maybe I had a whole bunch of distractions going on. Maybe I had family coming after me for money or something, right? And I'm dipping through. And then, when I had positives, maybe I had my kids, they were 2 years old. I went to kindergarten with them. We had a great day. So those kind of things in your life, putting that together, I think that's a big part of it, right? And it took me years to understand like the mental, your brain, how it works when you go through the lows and your thought process of thinking negative.
Yeah.
And the doubt, right?
The doubt, all of that. So, I mean, I started reading books a little bit.
You read? You know.
He
doesn't know how. I have to. So the thing is,
you don't need to. They read to you. I put in my earbuds and they just talk to me. I'm like, why do I need to read?
Oh, but I want you to keep going, because what you're touching on is actually, it's weird. It's intellectualizing. It's intellectualizing emotion.
Yes.
Right. You're rationalizing an emotional thing.
So I got more into counseling with counselors. Started learning more about what the feelings were, what's going on, and I didn't understand it at a young age. So they started telling me, you need to set up your boundaries. You need to focus on what's you can control. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Everything should be all over the place, and we should be doing this, family, whatever, and just keep going and blast through it. That's a pro hockey player, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you need to set up your boundaries, focus on what's important, your game, your pre-game, your day game, preparation, and structure it. So my game actually started, going up and up as I started learning, why do I feel this way? Why am I overwhelmed with anxiety, or, why am I getting injuries?
Yeah.
There must be something going on, like in my business or my family, right?
In every single one of these interviews, there's a common theme that is exactly what you're touching on. Mm-hmm. And it's so unique and interesting to put these, like the perspective and how it changes so much the older that you get. And
from rookie to vet. I mean, that's what happened. Maturity is like defined by that.
Awareness,
self-awareness,
self-awareness, and this idea that like as we've talked to a lot of people, most of them are in the latter stages of either their career or they're retired and they're looking back, and the perspective is really like they started to see breakthrough things happening when they became aware and they started to pay more attention to their surroundings. And when you're younger, right, when you're 18, you're just boisterous and you think, just like you said, I can plow through anything. And whether it's hockey, business, sport, any other sport, like you just think you're invincible, right? And so how do you touch into that at a younger age? We haven't been able to crack that code, but every single
no team has.
every single one of these elite people that have done cool things has looked back and said, God, if I would have just had more awareness or thought about things differently when I was younger, I would have seen better results quicker.
Right.
No, I absolutely agree. But the flip is the role of experience that creates the wisdom to reflect on that. And I think for a lot of people, at least for me, I have to, unfortunately, I usually have to fall and skin my own fucking knee before I learn something. And I think in sports in particular, there's such a physical component to things that a lot of the athletes, they need to skin their knees and gain wisdom. And it's like, and you're playing the role of like, well, how do I accelerate that? And that's ironically the role of a coach, right? And that's what you're kind of doing.
I think there's classifications of coaches. There's more now. I think you might be able to have a skills coach. Maybe you have a performance coach also on, with you as you're going through your career. And I looked at it and I'm like, how does this make sense? Because I'm the type of guy that I don't want to like use kids for something, right? Like I'm sharing. The way I looked at it, I'm going to share knowledge with them, make them better, make them a better player. Sure. So, and then I could accept it myself, but I think it leads into something like that, the mental side of it, what you were talking about with the gymnast. Yeah. You need somebody, maybe they have their dad or mom or somebody outside.
But it needs to be somebody outside.
Yeah.
The parents, and also somebody who's not financially or emotionally vested in it, and they take a complete outsider's look, and they're objective, right? Because sometimes you need to tell people exactly what's going on for them to get any type of meaningful like advice from it and do something actually with it. But I think we're on the real cusp of, I'm an entrepreneur, so as soon as I saw this and then hearing you speak, I'm like, there's going to be major business on the mental side of competition, and we're just seeing probably now this Olympics is going to be probably
catalyst.
Probably the catalyst that is going to propel this industry and it's just unknown, right? And I think you're in a really good position as far as what you're offering.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a side gig type thing. Because of COVID, it led into this. Sure. I'm like, maybe I'll do some more of it, and I think it's there. I mean, if you could have 50 NHL alumni, accessible for kids or players to get knowledge from.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like
it'd be invaluable, right? Yeah. And I think people that have formerly played, you would know better than I would, but they would get something out of it too, right? Coaching and giving back, it provides you meaning and purpose.
Yes.
And then the kids are getting something of talking to people that they might have watched on television and getting real advice, objective advice from someone who's played at the highest level.
I agree.
Like what a cool concept. And I'm already thinking like, okay, how do we build a website?
But here's the rub though. Here's the rub. Yeah. Let me give you a personal example of the rub, which is the problem. I don't like
when you say rub.
I know.
And here's the rub.
Rub-a-dub-dub.
It's making me uncomfortable.
Rad over here is starting to shift a little bit too.
We're going to change the conversation.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Recently, a couple years back, was a great player for the Oakland Raiders, Rod Streeter. Awesome receiver, phenomenal, had a great career. The Raiders will tend to invite players back of good stature, of people they know are mature and feel like they can contribute back to the rookies, right? So they had this panel. And Rod was part of this panel. And the rookies at that time was the star running back now was Josh Jacobs, a number of other different players. What was interesting to me is after this panel, Rod came out with me to a soccer game, and Josh actually came out with another couple players. And one of the players, for example, had his Gucci thing set up. He was asking me what shoes he should buy. Is one of those things. Didn't even realize that Rod was on the panel, right? Had no clue, no fucking clue. He didn't care. They didn't listen. He's just getting paid. He's immature. They don't want to fucking listen. No. On the flip side, Josh is sitting there going, Rod, thank you for coming today. He's a unique person. Unfortunately, he's the exception to the rule. He goes, dude, thank you. Fucking Rod's here too. I want to pick his brain more. I want to learn how to be a pro. But there's this, is there any way to open someone to listen?
No, there is. So what you do is you have a rating system both ways, right? It's the exact way that Uber did it, right? You could have anyone can drive you from point A to point B, but if you have a rating of this, then you're kicked off the system. If you're a passenger and you have the driver's rating you, you're rating the driver, right? Two-way authentication, and you have to have a bunch of data. Right. Yeah. So it can't just be one person, that didn't have a good experience, but you start doing a rating system right after the 30-minute session. Hey, both rate each other on, did the person, was the kid listening? Were they asking questions and those types of things? And then also too, with the former pro, how did both ways?
That's fascinating. That sounds like a business.
It is. I've already contacted, I was texting my web developer. It's a great idea though. And I think like I said, I think from an opportunity standpoint, you just look at it and you're like, mental health in the form of competition in sports, it needs to be objective. It needs to be somebody who's already done it. Like, I think there's a way there where you could probably do something.
Let's transition into entrepreneurial things though. So in terms of your life, if I categorize into 3 steps, right? You have your childhood, you're sharpening your skills, you're dedicating yourself, you're in the friggin' basement doing whatever drills you have to do to better yourself, right?
Yeah.
Now you've realized your dream. You've in the NHL. You played 13 seasons, navigated through injuries, all the shit that we're talking about right now. Okay, that's kind of category 2. Yeah. Now let's talk about what happened after you're done playing. Are you entrepreneurial? Did you invest in businesses? What exactly are you doing now, so to speak, or especially just right after your career and up to now?
Well, I did invest in businesses. I was in bar restaurants. I invested in oil
in San Jose.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I invested in oil field.
What you have? San Jose Bar? I can't remember what you had.
Trace Gringos.
Trace Gringos. Yeah.
Oh, geez, so I went to San Jose State, so I know all these.
So Rasheed Davis, the player that I was talking about with the Bears, he was the bouncer.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I got into that. I got into oil field trucking. That one was like I grew up around that. I grew up around the oil field, and that was a passion kind of thing for me. I'm still in it. So
when you get drafted in the first round in the NHL, it's not retirement. It's not like fuck you money. Like you still have to continue to get more contracts. How long is the contract? Give us some idea as far as the economics of getting drafted. Because like in the NFL, back when you were drafted, you're done. You don't need to play. You don't need a second contract. Yeah. You're good. You probably got $30 million guaranteed at that point. So walk me through the economics in the NHL.
When I did it, there was no cap on a rookie coming in, but mine was like maybe, I don't know, 750 for 3 years. I can't remember, something like that. But, it varied, but there was no guarantee. Like back then, they gave you a contract and it was take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And you had to earn, right? There was no upfront
It wasn't until Batterman got in there with the NHL that helped drive the union to negotiate some decent shit, right?
Yeah.
So it's a 3-year contract when you get drafted.
Yeah.
And then is that typical in the NHL for any, like you get the superstars that are making, but then in the bulk of it, the 80% of the middle, are they doing more 2-3 year deals? Is that typical?
Yeah, they're getting a lot better. The NHL is really good for players for making money.
Okay.
It's like very good.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I went through a 3-year contract. I think I might have had a 4-year and a 1-year at one time. It was kind of those take it or leave it things, and I had to prove myself.
Yeah.
So, and then I ended with like a 5-year contract. So, as I went on, it got a lot better. I got my game better, and of course, I was paid better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it worked out really well for me. But, then I got out of hockey due to injury and got into my entrepreneurial spirit and did some trucking, did some bar businesses.
Did you take is there like any major L's that you're like, fuck?
Yeah, there is.
Every entrepreneur's had that.
Yeah. Like I lost money in bars. I broke even in bars. So I made money. I lost money in real estate, lost a chunk due to the housing crash. And I made money on real estate, and I still got my trucking going. I'm making money on that right now. It's decent, but it's in Canada. So, and I actually, you can't go through life without having losses, right? It's there. And, right now I'm starting something new with trucking. I'm doing Amazon loads in Wisconsin. I seen the activity, and I was like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to see if this is worth it.
Because you recently moved to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like, is there a huge shift in culture there? Like, how's that shift from San Jose? Oh, you're up north and you go to Silicon Valley. Now you're in Wisconsin. You're a Bucks fan all of a sudden.
You know what? Yeah. Well, it's like Canada. So I walk right in there, and I'm like,
you feel at home.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, it's 40. It's actually, no, it's 19 degrees. It feels wonderful.
Yeah, no question. It's the Wisconsin people, hardworking people. They mow their own lawns.
Yeah.
They shovel their own snow, and I was like, oh my God, there's a mom shoveling snow.
Yeah. It's like, I haven't seen this since I was a kid.
Yeah, there's like an 80-year-old man. My neighbor's like, he's got the snowblower out. What the hell's going on here? What are you doing?
Well, let's talk about the hockey just in general, because for people that don't watch all the time, I want to know some of the strategy in hockey, right? Like I've watched hockey, but I don't.
Yeah,
have
you literally. I follow the puck and see if it scores. Like,
yeah. So I'm curious. Are you strategizing? Are you watching film? And then what are some of the strategies that you implement to be successful in that sport?
So I think every team, they all have their scouts or they have their coaches that are analyzing video. So you're getting an idea of what a team is running, whether it's a 1-2-2-4 check, 2-1-2, whatever, 1-4, right? And then you're analyzing their players. And of course, like, let's say you're going up against Edmonton. You got Connor McDavid out there. So, you know, you're changing your game to defend on this guy, right? And you go get a line, you pull him in, you get a couple of your top D, and like, okay, we got this guy again. We're going to watch
trying to isolate him.
Yeah, we got to watch this guy, and you kind of isolate him and try to prevent him from getting like 3 or 4 points, right? Wow. So there's a strategy to it. All of them are doing it, right? And I mean, it's the same thing on special teams. If you're running a power play, you run umbrella, you're running strong
What's a power
side.
play for some people that are just listening to like what exactly hockey is?
So when you get a penalty, you're on the power play, the other team is down a player, they're in the penalty box, so you have 5 against 4. So you can get an advantage.
You can essentially score easier.
You're supposed to score,
yeah.
right? Yeah, you're supposed to, but
sometimes the other team actually scores, then you really feel like shit.
You're getting shit. No question.
So we got to go into some fun questions, right? Like, so we talked a lot about your career, love all that. Let's talk about some of your background, but I'm curious, like, let's talk about the groupie situation in the NHL. Like, are there groupies?
Shit, I don't know.
He's turning red, ladies and gentlemen. He's turning red.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I plead the fifth.
Well, is there a? I mean, up north. I mean, an athlete is an athlete, right? I assume that you're revered, and there are temptations in every professional sport that I'm aware of. Temptations exist, right? I mean,
that's just in life. That's like temptation.
Well, for you,
A man and woman, it's naturally
or man and man. You know,
now it's man and man.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Woman and woman.
Yeah, whatever it is. We're fine with everything, by the way, on Fuck You Friday. It does not matter. But awesome. Any other weird questions, Casey?
No. I'm still processing your answers on this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna need a minute.
Yeah.
Can we take a recess over here?
No. We're good. Actually, this is a perfect time to actually thank you very, very much for being here. We really appreciate you coming down and sharing, particularly your wisdom on mental toughness, on the role that hockey has played in your life, how it transitions into business, and where you are today. And honestly, I feel like we may have had some sort of business opportunity here with incorporating this mentality and monetizing it.
I really like the idea. I really appreciate you coming in. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate some of the perspective in going through some of those struggles and how you process some of that, and then coming out and teaching high school and giving back and trying to help people from a mental perspective as well as understanding from a former pro perspective who's been at the height of the game. I think that's really awesome. So thanks for coming in.
So thank you. And just so you guys know, we're wrapping up. It's another episode of Fuck You Friday. I wanted to remind everyone, continue to slide in our DMs. That's totally fine with Casey. Also, please download, whatever you want to do, interact with us. We enjoy it. It's fun. And that really wraps it up for another episode of Fuck You Friday.
So fuck you.
Yeah, fuck off.
Fuck you.